Good.
Good morning, everyone. Hello. Yes, we are good. And I'm still A. David Lewis, and we are here for Workshop A of the New England Graphic Medicine Virtual Summit. I hope you are all doing well. Let me say a few housekeeping notes at the outset before I get to introduce our two workshop leaders today. First of all, this is being recorded, so you are welcome to review it and enjoy it at your own leisure later if either you get disconnected or if, in fact, you're not here right now and watching it as a recording. This is an unnecessary announcement. Additionally, if you would like to post or chat about this in the social media space, please feel free to do so. We just ask that you use the hashtag NEGM20 so we know you're talking about us. I am being ably assisted today by my NNLM-NER partner, Sarah Levin-Lederer. We are also having live captions being handled by Carrie Box, and the link should appear there in your chat window. If you have specific questions for our panelists, I don't know which way I should point, which side you're on. For our panelists,
this way.
Okay. Please use the Q&A button. If there are specific questions, you are welcome to chat at your leisure to each other, to me, to the panelists. But if there's a specific question you would like addressed before the end of the panel, please put it in the Q&A just so we don't lose track of it, just so that we don't lose track of you. Okay, preamble over. I am now delighted to welcome our workshop leaders. These are two of my friends who are extremely talented artists here in the greater Boston and Cambridge area. I am happy to cede the floor to Liz Sucks and Beth Barnett. My friends, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. And thank you for definitely being flexible and like moving this to like an online platform. Like everyone, thank you so much for all the work that's gone into this. I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but for anyone who may have just joined afterwards, we are going to be doing a interactive portion where it's going to have you, we're asking you to draw something. So if you want to grab any scrap paper, a journal, blank paper, whatever you feel comfortable with, as well as like a writing utensil, that would be awesome. Yeah. Cool. So I will just I'll start out kind of introducing myself and what we have for you today. So this is Experience, Process, and Paper Cuts, focusing on making mental health comics. My name is Liz Bolduck, but I create comics under the name Liz Sucks, which was created back like way before I like even knew I wanted to do autobio or like graphic medicine comics. And my work has a focus on my own personal anxiety, depression, and family history of mental health. This covers topics, a lot of the time it covers familial grief, so kind of working with family members and how that can affect yourself, myself, and coping with like a strange family and how physical and mental health can play a huge role. Beth, do you want to kind of go?
Sure. I'm Beth Barnett. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I make comics about heroes, health, and history. So covering everything from personal heroes to comics about health, such as mental health or physical health, and public health now. And I'm a comics history person, so a lot of times my comics that are not autobiographical autobiographical, are about historical time periods, including primarily the First World War. My autobio comics are primarily about my mental health struggles, living with generalized anxiety disorder, depression, and presumed ADHD. And at the moment, I'm actually currently making a daily diary webcomic called Social Distancing, which is about life in the greater Boston area during the COVID-19 pandemic. You, wonderful audience, will probably be making an appearance in today's as delightful, smiling little smiley faces as I record what's going on today.
Yeah. I obviously just recently learned that you started this comic, the diary comic for this, and I was checking it out. I have a lot of questions for you, because it's very fascinating.
Yes, of course.
Comic community. I mean, it's wild timing to be presenting today and having a lot of stuff going on, because it's how do we cope and how do we process, and that's basically why we're here today.
Yeah, I mean, in my own practice, I make autobiographical mental health comics to help me process, which I'm sure is similar with you, in that I'm able to create a narrative and look at the patterns in my life. One thing I actually enjoy doing is when I get a new therapist, I bring a copy of some of my zines and I hand them to the therapist to be like, hello, this is some background reading for you.
Yeah,
it's great.
That's the thing. It's funny. So I think that's where we relate, definitely, because I also see a therapist. I've seen the same therapist for about 4 years now, and I have been able to share new comics with her over and over, and then one time I did see a different therapist, and I did the same thing. I brought new comics to her, and I was like, hey, this is going to be a lot simpler if I can just show you everything. So it's this kind of nice way to introduce myself and how I'm experiencing things, but also as a way to update your therapist, with visuals, because sometimes going into therapy, it can almost feel it varies for especially what you're going into therapy for, but I'll be I don't even know how to start talking about something, or I don't know where to begin. And I can be oh wait, I just did this whole storyline, created a whole comic for it. Here, why don't I just show you this, versus trying to put it into words again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and especially one of the things I love about doing comics is that we're really able to bring in the visual metaphors. So so we don't have to just rely on our words. We can also draw. We can draw how we feel. So I find a lot, and I'm trying to figure out, especially when I was early on dealing with depression, and I wasn't quite sure what I was feeling, drawing the physical response to it. So one of the early comics that I did in my book, No Rest for the Anxious, I'm trying to figure out where I have all my books in front of me. I'm
working remotely, so I don't have any comics to show.
No. So this one is I'm drawing myself it's very early Beth work, where I felt like I was rattling around in my skin. My body was too big for my soul, and being able to draw that is incredibly cathartic. And occasionally if I feel really empty, I'll just draw myself with a big gaping hole in my chest or wherever it is that I'm feeling empty. And we can't easily do that with words, and that's where comics sort of come in and make it easier.
When I first started drawing comics, so I'll kind of mention how I began getting into autobio comics and coming into the realization that they are graphic medicine. Back in college, I was severely depressed, severely in a place where it was like very hard to do everyday things, and at a point of like being suicidal. It was like not a good time, and at that point I was discovering like zines in general, and like definitely it was kind of like that gateway into the like riot girl scene and being like, whoa, what is a zine? Whoa, what are like these things that people are doing on their own? And that's like kind of like where it all started. And I was like, wait, I can take this and like use it for myself. Like I can like take this as a way to like control my own narrative. I don't think I had that like vocabulary for that at that time, but I was just like, this is something that I want to like take the reins of. And I was seeing a therapist at that time, and I was able to, we started trying different like medications for anxiety, depression. And I was just like, well, I'm gonna like start drawing myself. I'm going to start drawing how it affects me, because I've heard all these things of people being like, I don't want medicine to change me. And like, what does that mean? Like, is there truth to it? Is it completely false? Like, I just wanted to explore that in something that was a bit more, maybe I was like growing up in like the Tumblr age. So I was like, I'll remove it from Tumblr, and I want to be able to like put it on paper in my own words instead of maybe like reblogging someone else's things, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I am like what, like 3 years older than you, and I just could not. Tumblr just like went completely over my head.
I like was hardcore into Tumblr, and it's, I mean, that's where I met almost a majority of my comic and zine friends when I first moved to Boston. I went to school, everyone, just to give you a little bit more background, because my brain is all over the place. I went to Keene State College in Keene, New Hampshire, graduated in 2015, and then immediately moved to Boston to feel closer to an art community. And I've definitely like found that and flourished. And I would say that is likewise for you, Beth. Would you agree?
Yeah. So I grew up in southern New Hampshire, and I moved to Boston to go to Emmanuel College for undergraduate. And then I moved to Scotland for 18 months, where I did my master's degree at the University of Edinburgh. And when I came back, because I'd been away for so long, I lost most of the connections that I had here in Boston, and really like dived into reading comics and wanting to make them, but not being sure how to go about doing it. About 3 years ago, I attended Melanie Gilman's course on graphic memoir up at the Center for Cartoon Studies. And that is what really got me making comics. I had been really, especially making memoir comics, I'd been really feeling like that I didn't have a story worth telling, because I am from New Hampshire and life is kind of boring. But Melanie's course really got me to realize that I can examine the moments, and even if I'm just drawing a panel or a small one-page comic, then my story is worth telling. And I found that it worked really well to do graphic medicine comics. I didn't know that's what it was called, but that's what I immediately jumped into doing. So it was really helpful. Like my early on, I was doing them to sort of figure out myself, and then before I started giving them to my therapist, I'd give them to my husband so that he could see and understand what was going on in my brain. And he's always the one who's encouraging me to do comics. So
I think that's a really good point to make for anyone who, for everyone who is here today, or may have like any sort of like interest in graphic medicine, because like, of course you can still participate in the creation process, even if maybe you're like, not like, I'm not a cartoonist, or like, I'm not an artist. Like I had to reteach myself. Like I drew when I was like 10-year-old and then stopped with like school and things like that. And then like basically picked up a pencil in college and was like, yeah, I'm going to reteach myself. Like I'm going to just practice every day. And like the thing about feeling like your story may not be worthwhile at first, like that's something that I feel like I know I've gone through, and I like still go through a lot. I'm like, literally, why does anyone care? But I feel like a great way of like combating that for myself, like even if I don't share it with others, because like anyone here today, like you could create a comic about your experience and not share it with anyone, and that's as valid as like creating something and putting it in print and then like selling it at an expo. I think definitely sharing work online has like become like so quick and like so popular, and I think that's like amazing. But I also think like it's also so okay and like so good to just like draw for yourself and just be like, okay, yeah, maybe I will just like show my therapist, or like maybe I will just show like my friends. Like I remember I showed my first comic about like my very first comic about how I was like, yeah, I think I want to like not be alive anymore, like really heavy things. I like showed it to my mom and then kind of just like tucked it away. And that's kind of just like been sitting there for like myself. So yeah, I don't know. I just like wanted to kind of like go off of what you were saying, because I definitely think it's such a big thing to kind of be like, I don't know if my story is like there or like has anything. Yeah.
Ultimately, I find as a creator, I tell stories for myself first, and the stories I tell, by and large, are autobiographical, and so they are very much as a process of me making these stories to better solidify how I feel about a situation or better understand. I don't share everything I make. I feel like I share everything that I make, but I don't. I have a zine that I wrote couple years ago. I had an ovarian cyst rupture, and I sat down the day I got back from the hospital and wrote a 16-page zine about that experience, with the full intention that I was going to share it, but I never did. So it just lives in my sketchbook now, and that's fine. That's where it is. It's an experience that I had, and I will probably share at some point, but that wasn't it wasn't worth me sharing it at that point.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. But yeah, and even with making comics, like one of the things, if you can say, oh, I can't draw, but like look at XKCD, which is famous for the fact that it's just stick figures, and you don't need to draw like Hergé or anyone. You don't have to draw like Liz or like myself. You just need to just draw. And if it's stick figures and your spelling is bad, it doesn't matter. My spelling is terrible, and with a lot of my journal comics, they're not very refined. They're very rough, very rushed. With social distancing, it's like, and with my anxiety diary comics, they are but diary comics. They're not refined.
Yeah,
they're messy. I spell things wrong, and I cross it off and go forward, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So,
do you think? Yeah, I feel like let's talk a little bit more about maybe creating comics in this time, and then maybe we can like switch over to the activity.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And that way we'll have like room for Q&A. First of all, I have to like applaud you for creating this like comic diary during this time. Do you want to kind of like do you want to like talk about what that's been like to draw the experience? Sure. And then, yeah.
So as I mentioned, I do a lot of history comics if I'm not doing autobiographical stuff. And one thing that I am fascinated with is the influenza of 1918. one of my very first history comics was actually about that, and I adapted a letter written by an army surgeon. And in thinking about what it's like to be living during COVID-19, I realized that I really want to create a document that future historians can look at, even if these historians are just like my best friend's kids, like it's fine. But I wanted to create something physical, and it's very important to me that these are physical documents. They are books that I'm drawing. And that way, if my computer crashes, I don't lose them. I upload backups, and I actually upload and share this on Webtoons, which is it's a comics hosting platform that shares comics from around the world. And they actually allow you to upload stuff if you're just a regular person. So it's like, okay, this is where I'm going to share it. I wanted to make sure that there were backups. And so it lives there. Dave is also collecting it on his website. So it exists in multiple places. And this is how I cope with what's going on. I have a lot of feelings. And I have a lot of stresses and anxieties, and being able to sit down and just record what I'm doing day to day. A couple days ago, I ended up writing one all about playing Animal Crossing and how
this is going to be a huge theme during this. I feel like
oh my god, everyone's playing Animal Crossing because it allows us to do what we're not allowed to do. We can go outside, we can fish, we can talk to our neighbors, we can interact with people, and in a lot of ways, like I found that incredibly helpful and therapeutic, and I'll sit down and play it for a couple hours a day because, like Elizabeth is saying, it makes me feel better.
I'm like very, very like I'm literally this close to buying Animal Crossing.
Do it. I'm not paid by Nintendo. I would like Nintendo to give me some money for this. But it's been so helpful, and I'm not a big games person. Like I like to play I like to play Pokemon, and just having the just simple tasks that you do and things that you collect. And it's just very cute. And it's been really, really helpful. But going back to graphic medicine, and just, I'm fortunately not sick. I haven't gotten COVID or anything. But I'm fully prepared that as I'm doing this comic, if I do get sick, that I'm going to be documenting my symptoms as well. And
that's a good point.
Just trying to make sure that I have as much information as I can down. It's difficult to do this while trying to keep up with the news. And I try to do little like what happened today panels where I'll focus on like the big stories, what's coming out of New York. If there's something coming out of the UK, my husband's British, so I have a special I need to make sure I know what's going on there as well. And different things, like I wrote about the Waffle House Index yesterday, and I try to provide context. I have a context obsession, but I also don't know who's going to be reading this at which point. Will they know what the Waffle House Index is? Will they know what Waffle House is?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully, but you never know.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's very interesting. I don't want to cut you off.
No, go for it.
It's very interesting because I feel like I can give a completely opposite reaction as like a cartoonist, because I think like I've been distancing and like isolating myself since like the 10th of March. And
we
so,
hit 2 weeks yesterday.
Okay, yeah. And, you know, I like immediately was like, well, I want to be able to draw diary comics about this. Well, I obviously want to like talk about what is happening like from the very beginning of like getting an email saying my offices are closing and don't come in, and be switching fully remote work. And just like the shift in life. But also, going back to like what I primarily focus on, which is like, like my own health, mental and physical, but also like my family and how that affects myself, and I mean just like worries me and things like that, because I would say a majority of my immediate family is like at high risk for this, and it's really, really terrifying, on top of having a partner who works in a grocery store, and just like all of these factors that I realized that I never was like taking into consideration, or maybe like I'm aware of but I'm not super aware of until there's a global pandemic, and I've only drawn one full complete page. Like I've tried over and over, almost like every day, to kind of like try a new style, or like me draw like me doing something like benign, just kind of being like, cool, I'm gonna be doing this during the pandemic, but like nothing has been like sitting well, and I think it like realized that very opposite of you, that I feel like I need to like sit and like exist and survive before I can like start documenting it. And I think it like was a big revelation. I was just like, oh yeah, like a lot of the things, my current work is all about like my childhood, and that's was like many years ago, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of all of this for those who are making work in the now, and then also for people who are kind of like, hey, I just like need to get through the day, and then I want to be able to contribute something to this, and I want to be able to cope with this anxiety in the best way that I know how, which is creating comics. But yeah, it's very interesting at this time. So as much as I'm like, oh, I want to be able to like provide an experience, like documenting symptoms, if I were to like get this, like via comics, like to me, that's the most approachable way for me to like know, like to self-diagnose or something like that, because I would not be able to afford to like go get the test right now in the United States.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
Oh, and this, for me, doing this is how I'm coping. It's how I'm keeping my head on. It's how I'm able to filter what I'm seeing and what I'm understanding, and how I can understand what's happening. Yeah. But everyone copes and understands differently, and it's really hard. So
if you don't mind my interjecting, we've had some people pose some really intriguing questions, but I also don't want to impose on your time with the actual exercises. So would you like to hear them now, or do you want to touch upon your exercise first?
Let's go through the questions. Beth, if you feel differently, feel free. Yeah, let's do that.
No, that's fine. Let's do questions, and then we'll do activity after we answer the first round.
Awesome.
Okay, well, this one comes from Phoebe Cohen. Phoebe asks, do either of you have Patreon? If so, have you had a good experience with Patreon? Is it a good resource for graphic medicine creators?
I have a Patreon. I've had one for about a year. I'm very bad at updating it. And it's so hard. It's one extra thing. And making comics and working, I don't work full time, I work part time. But working part time, making comics, and then also essentially running my house. It's really exhausting, and I don't always do well with updating Patreon. That being said, I do take in about between $25 and $40 a month, which is just nice to sort of have on the side. I'm sure if I did more, then I'd be able to bring in more. And this is the same with stores and Patreon, just being on Twitter, vlogging that I have one. I have it linked to my to my webtoon, and hopefully someone will think this is great and throw me some money, because this has actually become essentially a full-time job doing this daily comic.
I should have mentioned that Patreon is essentially a sponsorship site, tiered sponsorship site at which artists, creators of all ilks can set those tiers and what deliverables they intend to give. Liz, sorry, I wanted you on this also.
Yeah, I also have a Patreon. It should be linked. I think I saw Matthew link to it in the public chat. Thank you, Matthew. I have a Patreon as well. Straight up, it is like another job, 100%. Like I have a full-time day job and I draw comics, and I kind of have like set up a system to kind of funnel in all of the work that I do goes straight into Patreon. So I've had my Patreon for about 2 or 3 years, I want to say. At this point, I'm making like around like $300 a month from it. But that means a lot of like physical print work, because I love creating zines and like physical things that I can send out. So it's very time intensive. There is, investment. Like I take a lot of that money and just reinvest it into what I'm printing or what I'm sending to you. Definitely something that if someone were interested in it, like sit down with another person and like really think out the logistics of it. For graphic medicine, I think it's been a great way. I've seen a lot of my friends use it. It's valuing your work with money, because like, yes, we should be creating for ourselves, but also if you want to have this like sustain yourself like financially, this is a great way. Like you are 100% in the right in this capitalistic society to like ask for money for like providing all of this work to people, if that makes sense.
No, and I think comics and zinesters, we undervalue our work. And it's a huge conversation that is always being had within the comics art spaces, is that we don't know how to value our work because it's so personal. So we're like, I guess I made this thing, like here you can buy this like beautiful original piece of work that I did for like $25, where it's like you went into like a gallery, someone who's making something that's a comparable size and difficulty level is selling it for like $300. We don't know how to price things. We don't know how to put value on ourselves.
Exactly.
Which again, it's capitalist society. We have to do this thing.
We have a question from Jamie Mosquera, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, that I think is related to this in terms of valuing yourself and putting your art out there. Hi, Jamie, or Jaime, perhaps, excuse me. How do you get over the nerves around sharing vulnerable mental health comics?
I feel like I get this question a lot, and I assume, Beth, maybe I don't want to assume, but chime in also. I get this question a lot, especially because my work focuses so much on how I'm responding to my family. So there is like direct acknowledgement of my mom's mental health. And so a lot of people are like, well, what do your parents think? Or like, how are you not embarrassed? Like people have asked me like, how are you okay with like talking about what you're feeling or like what you're experiencing? Getting over it, I don't know. I think I've done a lot of work with my therapist to acknowledge and feel confident in the fact that what I'm creating is focused on myself and how I am feeling. I've made bad comics. I will state that. I've made bad comics where maybe it was like straight up like I should have either like not drawn something about with another person or maybe change names or something like that. It was a learning lesson. Like when I first started out making autobio, it's just something that like as long as you're doing it from like your perspective, I think that's, at least for me, the most like ethical way that I can go about drawing comics and sharing them, as to like just publishing them on like online and like letting people read it. I don't know, maybe that's just something that like I like sure, rake me over the coals. That's why I'm Liz Sucks. No. So
and I'm a ham and I like attention.
Okay, but like me too now.
I for years just did not want to share anything about myself, and sort of making comics, and it started with just sharing them amongst small groups of people, and seeing what people reacted to. But I'm finding that I get a lot of people come up to me at conventions or will leave comments on my online comics being like, oh wow, this really, really helped me. And if I can make something that I think will benefit people in helping them, I go forth. And I'm very honest in my comics. I don't try to make myself look good. If anything, like, I kind of worry that I don't come across all that great, but it's honest, and I find that the honesty is what people connect to. Mm-hmm. Again, with doing autobio comics, I am definitely conscious about what I'm writing and what I'm sharing, especially where other people are concerned. I get, like, my husband makes appearances in my comics a lot, and I give him full veto power to say that he doesn't want something to appear, or even if it goes online and he's like, I don't like that, can you take that out? Then I will. But yeah,
cool.
So
it looks like Dave disappeared. So do you want to go to activity?
Yes.
Or is there more questions?
So let's go to activity, and
we do have one or two questions, but
I accidentally cleared the Q&A from what I could see.
No worries, I have it.
We do have one or two more questions, but they can wait until after the exercise, certainly.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great. Let's do the exercise.
I'm really excited to draw something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's make comics.
Heck yeah. So if you missed it, I'll say it again. Grab some scrap paper and then your writing utensil. Since we are kind of like, this is like such a short time. Perfect. Yep. I'm like, I got my things. I think the best approach is that I'll kind of talk about the basics of what we're going to do. And I will reiterate, there is no pressure to draw a finished product, to make it the most beautiful thing ever. This is just kind of going to be a cool, like, introduction to drawing your feelings. Maybe that's how we should have named it. So to begin, on the scrap paper, you can either, let's see. Because of timing, I'm going to say let's aim to create a 4-panel comic. Does that sound good, Beth?
Yeah,
cool.
That's what I was going to suggest.
Yeah. We were like, I'm ambitious with 6 panels.
Nope. 2 to 4 panels. Do what you can.
Yeah, exactly. So the goal is 2 to 4 panels. So if you want to draw 2 to 4 boxes on your sheet of paper, bear with me, as you know, we're working with paper materials on the internet. You can kind of see I like started to pencil, so I kind of cheated and started early. But if you want to create those 4 panels, that would be the best starting point. And let's see here. And I'm going to also be looking at the chat in case anyone has like a question or they're like, I don't know what to do. So kind of to mimic what Beth and I do, we want to give you a prompt for you to kind of contemplate, sit with, and think about. So the prompt is draw about a time you got a minor injury, like a splinter or a paper cut. That being said, it also can be like an emotional or mental injury, if you would like to. No one be nervous. Don't be nervous. I think I may have lost Beth, but that's totally fine. We're going to keep going. Let's see. Okay. Oh, it may look like Beth is back. So what I recommend doing right now is what I like to do is start out with like a draft. Right, Beth, are you there?
I am here. I'm not. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. My internet hates me.
No worries.
So
we got this. I was like,
yeah.
Okay, let's adjust. So we have the 4 panels. We have the prompt, the great starting out point, and I will also type this into the chat so you can also read it over. What I like to do, and Beth, feel free to be like, this is how I want to approach it. I like just like free writing for a minute or two, and kind of being like, cool, let me think of an injury. Okay, now let me just like write down everything that I remember of it. And then I'm going to pick 4 sentences out of that free writing, and then I'm going to use those as the like either captions or like the prompts for each panel. And I'll be writing that down in the chat so that way, you know, you're not like, what was this? So that's how I'm going to approach it. Beth, do you have a different way you want
to? So when I do diary comics, I don't plan. I just bird vomit and go. So I'm a very free association, and I go from there.
Cool.
So
I like this because I feel like in my brain, I also have undiagnosed ADHD, but I think I've like been able to overdo everything and like have my life in such like little chunks. And I like that we have the like freehand. I'm like, okay, everyone plan.
I wish I were better at planning. When I do big books, I do plan everything out. And again, in a very similar like free associating way. But when I do my diary comics, it's just sort of like whatever I feel at that specific moment.
Yeah,
is what I write down.
Awesome. Yeah, so
I don't edit myself.
I also barely do too. So I'll give about, I mean, we can use the like next like 10, less than 10. We'll like feel it out. People chime in if you feel like if you have any questions or if you feel like you're done and just sitting there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, we can answer questions. Do you want to answer questions while everyone's working on it?
I think that works, yeah. Yeah.
So, cool.
I suppose. Here we go. Are you hearing me loud and clear?
Okay, it's working.
Good. All right.
Okay.
I figured there was a small lag. Okay,
You've returned.
I've returned with the questions in hand. This question, as we all doodle, is from Laurie Dube or Dubé. Liz.
Hi.
Do you feel like you are helping to break through the barriers of social stigma surrounding depression and or mental health?
That's a good question. I would like to say yes. I would like to have that confidence to say like definitely yes. I think I feel more strongly that I am participating or doing something when it comes to like my own well-being in relation to others in my life. I feel like growing up, I really wish I had the comics, the friends, the graphic novels that I do now about family, about toxic family environments, about coping with families, just like things like that. And because that's so largely a focus of my work, it's been the most comforting to have people be like, hey, this like really helped me, like they'll say like my mom or like my like family member also exhibits signs of XYZ and it really like messes me up in XYZ way. And just like relating to others on that level, I think it like reminds me that like I'm definitely doing something that I feel like I have not seen enough of. So yeah. Yeah.
We'll get Beth back in just a second. I'm sure she can still hear
Yeah.
the next question that I'm going to pose. This is from Matthew No.
Hi, Matthew.
How might libraries who can't find and buy your work at something like Mice collect your work for their community? And I'll repeat this again if Beth wasn't able to tune in. I know she's loading back on now, which
Okay.
is fine. We knew this would be among one of the troubles we're dealing with today, but it's okay.
No.
Beth, I'm going to repeat for you as you're loading in, and then I'll step back. Okay. How might libraries who can't find and buy your work at something like Mice, which is the Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo, held annually in Cambridge.
Yeah.
How can they collect your work for their community?
Yeah, I see Beth is still loading. So if I'm understanding correctly, to collect like Beth or my work, if you can't get it in person, speaking from my own experience, I've had, oh goodness, there was a library in Cambridge that reached out that it was geared towards like feminist literature, and they wanted to work with me in getting my comics in their collection. And so that was like as simple as just walking through, like talking through an email and figuring out financial support, whether they were paying me or, what was like, what did that look like? For me, it really comes down to like, I want to share my work with as many people as possible. So I'm always happy to talk about that. I've had places in like in Wisconsin reach out to me to like have their things in their library.
How should they be shared at the library though? How do you see them being stored or collected or packed?
Yeah.
Is there an age level that you would associate with it? And Beth, now that you're back, we'd welcome you to comment on this also in terms of how libraries might collect your work for their community.
Thank you for rephrasing that. Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you. So if any library would like to purchase my 15th, due to the lockdown in Seattle or in Washington, which is where my store is based. But after that, I'll send you the link, which is in there. I have had libraries purchase my work through there. I've done actually quite a bit of my research for my historical work in the Bodleian Library is in Oxford, along with Magdalen College, also in Oxford. And Magdalen College and Jesus College both have copies of my work there, because I talk about doing that. I think a lot of libraries in the greater Boston area have like specialty zine sections, which is where a lot of our work is collected and is housed within zines.
Yeah.
So I know the Somerville Public Library has that. I think I have a one-off zine in the MIT libraries from when I did an event there.
Nice.
Now that I work there, I hope that they like buy my stuff and put it in either like zines or in graphic novels. It's an interesting way to like figure out how to sort things. Does it go in within comics, or does it go within medicine? Does it go within like history? And I think it's really interesting to grapple with those questions. One thing I like about Harvard Bookstore is that they are now actually putting their graphic novels in within their regular stacks. So if you go to like the Middle East history section, you'll find Guy Delisle, that's his last name. You'll find his work within his work. Jerusalem is in that like history section.
Cool.
So
yeah,
sorry if I took that completely off track.
No, I think you brought it back. No, you did the right thing. Definitely a good question on how to present it. Everything that Beth said, it's something that I don't think has been, it's new. I'm trying to fit in zines or self-published comics, things like that, where like I've worked in academic where I've heard like self-published things are kind of like not maybe held to the same standard or like held to the same like quality as something else, which really frustrated me because like just because someone self-published it doesn't mean it's like any lesser. But I do understand.
I mean, especially within comics and zines, there's such a like a do-it-yourself sort of mentality. They're like, it's ridiculous to be like, oh no, this is self-published, therefore it's not good. And then you look at books like Finder by Carla Speed McNeil, and that was like originally self-published, and A Distant Soil, and we have a do-it-yourself mentality. We can't be held to the same. We hold ourselves to the standards of a publishing house.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so. I just want to like check back in with the activity. I'll be looking on Twitter for all of the photos of your activity. Thanks for kind of like being flexible with how we're doing this. And I think with like the talk of COVID-19 and diary comics, I think I feel like maybe we could have like given you more time, but continue to work on these, and I'll tweet all of the things that I see.
Same.
Yeah. Are there other questions that we should answer? Let's see here.
I see one from Rakshanda that says, does creating comics about mental health challenges help you look at what you are feeling from different perspectives or give you greater insight into yourself? So for me, it's all greater insight into how I function and how I structure things and how I cope. And then I can use that to create better habits for myself and understand better how I think and process things, so I can cut off any what's the word I'm looking for?
I like how a different phrase.
Yeah, any behavior that's not that great, I can recognize it and then work and actually have evidence that I have worked around this. So, Liz?
I think that working through these things in comics helped me make these moments more concrete, and then I am able to a lot of the time move forward from them, maybe not like close the book and be like, cool, I'm totally solved of like all this anxiety, like whatever I'm going through. But I can like be like, cool, it's on a page, I have done it, I'm going to move on now because I've already kind of dealt with this. If I need to revisit it, I will, but
we have finished this. We finished this chapter, and these themes may come back later on in the book, but the book is not closed.
Exactly. Hello, Dave.
Hi. Dave. With only about 5 or so minutes remaining, I didn't know what sort of wrap-up elements you each wanted to address here. Certainly, I can pose a final question, or we can touch on another exercise. How would you like to roll?
I'm happy to go for more questions.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I had this question. And Beth, you started to touch on it just a little bit in documenting your behavior or habits. But I'm also curious in the visual element here. How does the way in which you depict yourself visually, how your representation or your avatar changes, reflect your evolving mental status or devolving mental status?
So my avatar changes as I get haircuts. So like you can like look at some of my earlier stuff, and I've got a little bit more of like a Tintin thing going on. And currently, I've got like, because the sides of my head are shaved, I just got like a big old like fluffy thing on the top of my head. Yep. But how I change how I draw my body language. So I'll draw myself more droopy or like more like tense. And if I'm just drawing my face, I do a lot with the eyes, because even though I just draw myself like with little tiny Hergé bean eyes, I'll do a lot of like, if I'm really stressed or tired, I'll do lines underneath it. And like the darker, closer together the lines are, like the more tired or stressed or going out of my mind I am. And I'll sometimes fill in the beans. Sometimes I'll leave them like wide, like saucers. And I do that to sort of express like, as like shorthand for things aren't going great.
It's a good yeah. It's interesting. So I feel like I use a lot of family photography for like reference photos for especially when I'm talking about childhood and or just like old memories and how they are relating to like my life now. So I feel like I try to make it distinct in that I feel like I am geared towards a more realistic style when it's like a memory, because I'm like working off of a reference photo, and I like there's a distinct difference in like viewing a photo and then drawing it, and then me just like drawing myself kind of like from my own imagination. I'm a lot more like rounder and like a lot more like stringy Doug cartoon when I'm drawing it like from just like straight imagination. And I think that's something I did not realize I was doing for a while, and then realized like, oh yeah, this is kind of just like my two different selves. Like I want to use this more like looser, more like cartoonish Liz, just kind of like in the day-to-day, because that feels like I'm kind of like removing myself. Whereas if I use reference photos and I get those like sharper angles or like more details in the face, it feels a lot more like those are distinct memories that like I will always have, that I'm trying to like recreate for myself. So that's kind of like how I approach it, if I'm understanding correctly.
As we start to wrap up, let's remind people both what they can do with some of the exercises they had today, namely post it anywhere on social media with the hashtag NEGM20. And Beth and Liz and I and everyone will all get a chance to enjoy, look at that, and comment on it. Liz, Beth, and we've shared your various accounts, your various work. It just leaves me to thank you for sharing this today, your thoughts, your experiences here, your time. I don't know that you'll be able to hear it, but let's give Liz and Beth a virtual round of applause.
Yay!
Yay!
My own clap.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was really awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for organizing.
Yeah.
Entirely my pleasure.
And having us do this presentation.
Oh my God, entirely my pleasure and the pleasure of the whole conference. Let me remind everyone that in about 30 minutes time, find the link to the keynote where we'll be having Brian Fies join us. And if this was useful or helpful to you, please know that you can share it, share a recording of it after the conference concludes. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
I'll
everyone.
share my comic online too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.